Mind blown. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that or been around that, but wow, what a crushing blow as an artist to see that firsthand. Crushing.
You see there's a restless energy inside of you that you've learned to channel into projects and acting.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. It's a. I think that gets chalked up to a lack of fulfillment, and I always feel like that void, like my glass is half full for what I want to achieve creatively and in this business too. I couldn't stop thinking about certain aspects of being an actor or writing now, directing to the business, which is a whole other thing. I can't stop thinking about it if I tried. I don't know. I think I have like a borderline healthy obsession about it, which maybe leans a little bit towards unhealthy obsession sometimes, which is basically lack of sleep, and all that stuff. And hey, it is what it is, But no one will ever accuse me for not working hard enough. That's for damn sure. And the big transition for me, if I may even talk about this, was trying to figure out how to work hard as an actor, how to work hard as a writer, how to work hard as a director and a producer. Because that was a challenge for me coming from a family business, growing up hard work. I didn't grow up doing 8 hours a day and thinking that was it. Family business is like you wake up with it, you go to bed with it. So when I transitioned to this business, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. Even when my first year out in LA, I was considered a working actor. I made just enough money to live acting, it's tough. That doesn't happen. And I was, not like I sat back and did one of these. It wasn't that, but I was like, okay, but I still have more time on my hands. So I'm a working actor. What am I gonna go do, yoga in the park? Like, I got things to do. I still wanna go, I still wanna climb. Nothing against people that do yoga, but it just wasn't for me. I just wanted more, So that antsiness, that want to, I guess you can, I don't know, Karen, attribute to just wanting to succeed too, is kind of mixed in there, It keeps propelling me to stay hot on my toes and moving forward. And I think there was a point where I realized on that drive out to Los Angeles, after I got pulled over by that cop, I was like, man, I'm gonna make it by hook or crook, by any way possible in this business. And I'm gonna support my acting career doing so. When I got to Hollywood, I saw the game real quick. I knew a few cats out here, the big parties and all that stuff, and I saw how that stuff went down, and not my cup of tea, I just kind of stayed in my own little world, but I saw how it went, and I noticed early on that actors that most people know by name, at one point or another in their career were scooped up and placed. Very rarely was an actor just climbing their way up and not positioned. The agencies are powerful. The studios are even more powerful than the agency. I don't care what people say about agencies. The studios are the ones that make the decisions. And if a studio likes someone, the studio says, we want her, we want him. All the agents can do is push. So I noticed that nobody in my life, maybe that's a good thing, ever went like this with me. Not that I expected it or yearned for it, but I'm like, well, if no one's gonna do that for me, at least right now, for me to sit here and expect and dream and hope and believe, I said, what a waste of time. Nothing against it. You do have to have that in you, but I said, I'll do it myself. I almost cursed, I didn't. But I'll do it myself. And I think I had the wherewithal to kind of do that. And with that was a learning process in itself as well. I took a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, learning how to support my acting career. Even though I was booking work and things were going good, the work was not satisfying me. It wasn't enough for me. I don't know if it'd be enough if I worked 360 days a year as an actor. I might still want to work those extra 5. That's just kind of how I am. So for me, if I was going to come out here and put everything I had into being an actor, and my career was dictated by people via auditions that I'll never even meet, which essentially dictates my life, right? I can't deal with that. I couldn't deal with being an actor. I couldn't deal with living the life of an actor. And there was a major major point in my life where I said, all right, game on. And I flipped another switch. And that's when I started writing and producing. And that came first. So writing and producing was a journey in itself. I learned from a lot of people. I learned the business as a whole. My second year out here, I hooked up with a foreign sales rep. I told him I'd work for free. I wanted to learn how that went down. I wanted to know it. I said, well, I'll work for free, man. So I ended up going to AFM 2 years in a row, sitting in the booth, seeing how that went down, selling to Australia, selling to Korea, selling to China. Mind blown. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that or been around that, but wow, what a crushing blow as an artist to see that firsthand. Crushing. I probably threw down a bottle of liquor after that. That was something, boy. To see how the artistic integrity of this business, the driving force to make the art, and then all of a sudden the art turns into content and then is bought. Wow, that was a mind, you know what. And at first I was blown away by it, and then I embraced it. And when I embraced it, that's when I felt like I took another step up. And then when I learned that part of the business and the US distribution side, which I worked for a US distributor too, a real bum. I'm not going to mention their names, but you know, there's a lot of them. But I saw that side of things too. But I needed to know that side of the business if I was going to start from the beginning and know where I was going to go. It's kind of like building a house. If you guys go buy a piece of land to build a house, right? I equate a lot to construction. There's a lot of similarities that just make sense to me. But if you're going to buy a piece of land and build a house for spec and sell it, you'd want to know what the houses are selling for. You know what I mean? If you're going to buy a piece of land for 100 and you build a house for 100, now you're out of pocket 200,000. You better hope they're selling for over $200,000 or you're going to be in a loss. You know what I mean? Same thing with this business. Soup to nuts, same thing. Business is business is business. And that's when I started getting a little more solid. Like I felt like I was walking on solid ground in the industry rather than just floating around. I couldn't float, not from what I left home to come here and just float and see what happens. That wasn't in the cards for me. So once I learned the industry inside and out, I was like, okay, now I got you. Now I got you, now I got you. And I figured out how to produce better by making mistakes, by learning from other people's mistakes. I hope whoever's listening learns from my mistakes. I'll be open about them. And that's when I crossed that threshold. Once I crossed that threshold, that's when things started cooking. And there's a movie in 2017 that I was brought on to play the lead. And then I eventually rewrote the script and produced it and then even executed it in post-production and all that stuff. And that was called Bad Frank. And that one put me on the map and got things rolling as an actor. And then one thing kind of led to another, and it just kind of built from there.
And speaking of coming from New Jersey, family business, correct me if I'm wrong, you said your dad had a saying that is, the strong take from the weak and the smart take from the strong.
Yeah.
And it really had me, I was like, oh, wow. I started looking at my own life from that.
Yeah.
Can you share a little more about that? That's a really eye-opening quote.
Yeah, and he's a man of few words too. But when he spoke, I listened, you know. There's a lot to be said with the simplicity of that, isn't there? And I spent a long period of my life being strong and forgetting about, not acknowledging that I needed the knowledge to step up, you know? And it's an important aspect, especially in this industry. Yeah, you can be strong, you know, yeah, you'll survive strong, you'll survive. But I don't think it's just enough to survive. I was never happy just surviving, especially in this industry. Hell, in life, you know? So I made it my point to gain as much knowledge as possible. I'm like a sponge, I still am, to really get the ins and outs. And then there's practicality on top of that, you know, the doing. The last thing I am is an armchair guy that just has a lot to say about nothing, which a lot of people do, you know. If I'm going to write a script, I'm going to make it. Period. That's it. Hands down. Nothing against someone else who just wants to write and they write scripts. That's what they do. My hat goes off to them. I don't even know if I consider myself a writer. I've written several scripts and I've gotten them made, but I know writers that write every single day. I don't. So I don't want to discredit a writer and say that I'm a writer. You know what I mean? I've written screenplays, I'll just say that. I've produced, but I don't produce all the time. I produce when certain things, certain doors are presented to me, you know, and I make the decision to. But there's producers that produce full time, you know? So I just try to be as smart as possible with my approach, get the appropriate information, and you can only get so much from listening. Sometimes you gotta kind of do it. You gotta get your feet wet. And nowadays, it's impossible to not make mistakes, but I try to make them these mistakes rather than the big ones. And sometimes you gotta get hit a few times to know that, you know.